Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
A huge good evening, everyone. Good evening and very welcome to our 8th Student Enterprise Programme live broadcast. And it's the first one of 2021, isn't it? First one. So happy 2021 to you guys. Big happy new year. Missed you over Christmas, really have. So what are we doing for our first live Student Enterprise Programme broadcast of 2021? I hear you ask. Well, on tonight's show, we're going to be talking about 2 optional student enterprise competitions. The first one is called My Entrepreneurial Journey, and this competition is for the junior cycle students. So I think first year, second year, third year students. So that's My Entrepreneurial Journey competition. Caroline will be talking about that in a little bit. And we also have a second competition for the senior cycle students. Now that's called Most Creative Business Idea Video Competition. So that's the second competition that we're going to be discussing tonight. Along with Caroline, we have 2 fantastic guests this evening. We have Sinead and Eilish, and they're going to be talking about what the competition involves and how you put together not a good submission, but a great submission. So that's what we're going to be discussing. Our first guest tonight, now Caroline chatted to her a little bit earlier on, but I'm going to put her face up on the screen, is Sinead Brady. Now, Sinead Brady is a junior cycle business teacher at Our Lady Secondary School in Castleblaney in County Monaghan. And Sinead took part in the My Entrepreneurial Journey competition with her first year students last year, and she's taking part in the competition with her first year students this year as well. And she chatted in a little while ago with Caroline about what was involved with the competition and what worked for her. So she'll share some of her tips and tricks a little bit later. And let's head over to our green room now. Let's see who do we have in there. Well, we have, needless to say, we have a very glamorous looking Caroline as ever in the green room. Looking as cool as a cucumber. And then we have a colleague of mine, which I'm delighted to have on the show this evening, called Eilish Bull-Godley.
Hi, good evening.
How you doing? So Eilish works as a digital marketing specialist at Content Plan, which is where I work too. So we're co-workers. It's freaky seeing you in an evening. But anyway, it's lovely to see you. And Eilish, you're going to be talking about how students can put together a great video entry for their senior cycle Most Creative Business Idea Video Competition a little later. So there we go. I know what you guys are thinking as ever. You're thinking, are there any competitions tonight? And before you ask Eilish, no, you can't enter. You're excluded. Sorry about that. But as ever, we have 2 amazing competitions tonight. Our first competition is for teachers, and the winner of our teachers competition will win a €50, no expense spared here, a €50 one for all voucher. I kid you not, Caroline, you're looking in shock there. So we have actually 1 voucher for students and 1 voucher for teachers. How do you enter, I hear you say? Let's start with the teachers first. So teachers, when you see a dog, we're looking out for a dog. There's no fancy things today. It's a dog. When we see a dog, head into the Student Enterprise Common Room. Yes, we do have a virtual Student Enterprise Common Room. When you see a dog, enter that common room. I need you to text 086 15 37440. So that's 086 153 7440 with your name, your school, and your county. So that's what we've got to do, teachers. Students, you're last this week. Students, so what do you guys have to do? Well, students, what I want you to do is look out for the lemonade stand. So when you're getting a bit thirsty, sometime through the show, we're going to have the lemonade stand. When you see the lemonade stand, I need you to text your name, your county, and your school to 086 153 7440. Let's put that up on the screen very quickly. So there's students. So look out for your lemonade stand, and that's the number. That's the same number for the teachers. So there we go. So that's the excitement. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears peeled. Eilish, I'm going to say goodbye to you for a moment. We'll see you in a little bit, and we'll hang on to Caroline. So Caroline, you had a chat with
Sinead.
With Sinead a little bit earlier about the My Entrepreneurial Journey. I think very, very important just to mention to everyone, this competition is it's open to junior and intermediate category students, first, second, and third year students, and to the best of my knowledge, it's individual entries only. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So it's individual entries only. And it's a great opportunity for students to interview an entrepreneur, to imagine themselves as an entrepreneur. Now, they're not looking for creative ideas. It could be the local cafe or whatever, and then to reflect back on what they learned. And the research, we'd recommend desk and field, and they also then produce a poster plan on this to actually represent it. So it's a really exciting part of the competition this year, and it's for the junior cycle, which is junior and intermediate.
Well, let's listen to your chat with Sinead right now.
Okay. Today, we're going to talk about my entrepreneurial journey, and we're going to give you an overview of what my entrepreneurial journey is, showing you a few slides. Now, the My Entrepreneurial Journey competition, we're just going to go through it, and we commence with what it is. Well, what it is imagine your life as an entrepreneur at some stage in the future. It might be in 5 years' time when you do your Leaving Cert, or in college, or in 10 years or 40 years' time. So you imagine yourself setting up a business, being on this entrepreneurial journey, and then you tell us the story of this fictitious business, highlighting what you learned about being an entrepreneur on the way. Now remember, this is an individual competition, and it's for the junior cycle. There are 3 parts to this competition. Number 1, there's the entrepreneurial story, which is worth 50% of the marks. Secondly, there's an A3 poster, which is worth 40%. And finally, you must interview an entrepreneur, which is worth 10%. Let's look at this in more detail. Well, what's the entrepreneurial story? We're looking for about 500 words maximum. That's about 2 A4 pages. You write an account of your entrepreneurial life. What was the business you set up, the product, the name, why you became the entrepreneur, what were the ups and downs, the good points, the bad points, lessons you learned, and challenges that you actually overcome. The second element is actually an A3 poster, which is worth 40%. It's kind of like a visual board, a storyboard, where you imagine your entrepreneurial journey. And we call it the 10-point enterprise plan. And we're just going to show you an image taken from our resources of what the 10-point poster plan looks like. And in case any of those terms are new, we go on to the next slide. We actually, in our resources, have all those points explained, from how you set it up, your resources, doing your marketing, the name, how you promoted it, did you need money, challenges, lessons learned, etc. Finally, you interview an entrepreneur, and this is worth 10%. So a local entrepreneur in your community, you might decide to email them, or a Zoom meeting like we're doing, or maybe you can look it up online. But include desk and field research. Desk, the information is already there, and field research, is like interviewing the entrepreneur. And in case you're unsure of what kind of questions I could ask, these are all available on our resources and our website, studententerprise.ie, with all the questions and explanations. We're delighted now here this evening to have Sinead with us. And Sinead has been really successful with the Student Enterprise Programme, and she links it with the Junior Cycle Business Studies, and she has been just so successful. And we know from talking to Sinead and her students that they've been really excited about this. Sinead, how are you? May I
I'm
come
good,
in?
Caroline. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we're delighted to have you on, Sinead. I just want to start with asking you a question. Maybe when you were working with your first year students last year on the My Entrepreneurial Journey, how did you find the experience? And secondly, did your students actually enjoy taking part in this entrepreneurial journey?
Yep. Yeah, I find it really straightforward in relation to the information provided by the competition. So it clearly shows the three parts that you just went through, Caroline, the entrepreneurial story, the poster, and the interview with the entrepreneur as well. And from a teacher point of view, all the questions there's a lot of sample questions already provided for their account of their story. There's lots of prompts for them to use. So from a teacher point of view, I could just go into the class and deliver it. So it wasn't time consuming for me to do. From the student point of view, they really enjoyed it. I think they love, especially first years, love being creative. And they really enjoyed, getting into that sense of being an entrepreneur, designing their own business, coming up with a little logo and things like that. And the fact that it's a competition, like they love the idea that they could get a prize or a trophy or some monetary reward from it as well. And then a little thing that I do also is that within the class, I actually do my own little rewards for the students. So I have a little prize for, the most in-depth interview, the best poster that, shows the entrepreneurial journey, and the entrepreneurial story, the written account of 500 words that shows the challenges and the rewards of being an entrepreneur. So that gets them a little bit more competitive too, and the students really get engaged, I find.
Okay, Sinead, that sounds fantastic. And I love the idea that you actually have your own little prizes for the students as well. And they love that bit of encouragement, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, I know that this competition is a little different than setting up your own business. It's a fictitious story of the entrepreneurial research. Did the students grasp this concept easily? And how did you get them started, in particular with the research?
Yeah. I suppose, the students that I teach, so I teach in a school in Castlebany in County Monaghan, and I suppose it's quite an enterprising town. There's many students in the class have family members or extended family members that own a business, an entrepreneurial business. So I suppose I used that prior learning. We started a discussion in the class, first of all, of what is an entrepreneur, what would it be like to be an entrepreneur. We then feed back that information. We do a little mind map on the board, and we'll put up different key points. So for example, what skills think an entrepreneur would need, what qualities, what challenges would they face, what about taxation, how would COVID-19 affect the business. So you're really giving them a little mind map and visuals of what the entrepreneurial journey would be like. Another thing I do is, because it's a reflection activity, which is one of the key skills of junior cycle, and I suppose I do it with first years, this competition, and some of them are only, a few months into the junior cycle experience. So I'll always put a timeline along the board. And I do my timeline from 2015 to 2030. And you draw a little stick man at the end, and you imagine they're in 2030 and they're looking back at their business. You're trying to get them into that routine and that skill of trying to reflect. So you're showing, 2015, your business started. Okay, what would have happened in 2016? So you're really getting them to look back. And then, for example, in 2020, COVID happened. Okay, we've got Brexit now. Brexit, we're a town on the border of Northern Ireland. How's that going to affect us? So you're looking back on it. I also do sentence starters, which I think works really, really well with the students. Giving them little sentences. For example, in 2020, one of the challenges I found was how I overcame this was, if I were to start my business again, I would do this. So you're giving them little skills and little sentence starters to try and assist them in doing the entrepreneurial journey. In the research, I get them to, I use the Chromebooks. We rent out the Chromebooks in the school, and we do a lot of the, the desk and the field research on that. So you're prompting the students, telling them about, well, if you want to set up a cafe in Casablanca, who's your competitors? So they can do some research online and they can get all their information from that side as well. And one of the things I'd suggest to you, a little tip would be for relation to the students to really get the concept of it when they're writing about their entrepreneurial journey, is to do the interview more towards the start of the competition, because it's such a fantastic way to really get them to understand what an entrepreneurial journey is. So for example, when they interview the entrepreneur, the questions that are in the template provided in the competition is, how do you impact your local community? What IP considerations did you need to consider? Like things like that first year students may not have a knowledge of. So it's fantastic that they can communicate with a person in the local community and get that feedback for them, and they can use that and translate that and adapt that to their own business. I find, I suppose this year too, there'll be a lot of emails. It'll all be done, I suppose, electronically with emailing the entrepreneurs. And it's a fantastic way to improve their IT skills and their communication skills, and you're teaching them formal writing as well. So I think all of them things combined, for me, it worked really well and was very successful with my students.
Sinead, that sounds fantastic. And I love the idea of the timeline, and that makes it probably easier for the students then to look back and to reflect and be able to bring in all the different things from, we have the COVID, Brexit, goodness knows what will be as it goes in the future. And the sentence starters as well, I think is really important for the, especially for first year students. And as you say, they're not familiar with the terminology and it takes a while to get familiar with it as such. That sounds fantastic. What did the students find challenging then when they were doing this, Sinead?
I find one of the things they probably find the most challenging is coming up with the business idea. And I'm trying to remind students that they're not being judged on how innovative or how spectacular their idea is. It could be something very basic. But some students know straight away what they want to do, and other students, you can see them starting to get frustrated because they can't think of what business idea they want to come up with. So I suppose to overcome that, I always put, it's kind of similar to the TY mini company, how I would brainstorm with them is on the board, we'll put up different little bubbles, we'll put up trends. What's the current trend at the minute? And we talk about like this, I actually started the competition just before the Christmas break. So we started talking about dog ownership is really high at the minute. So what products can come out of that? So they're talking about, dog walking and dog products and food products. And then we started talking about computers and IT. People are going to need computers, and that could be a possible business in school, students needing computers. And then we do the hobbies and interests. What hobbies do you have? What interests you? Can you think of a business idea that might come from that? And then, for example, in the local area, what's missing from the local area? So you're trying to brainstorm the different ideas. And I think from that activity, students generally do come up with it. But I think once they get the business idea, they get excited and they roll with it. But I think probably come up with the business idea, for me, I found was the most challenging for students.
Okay. And that's great that you kind of, you give them those nuggets as such, mentioning, well, what's the trend? And I love the dog walking and all the different businesses and stuff with that. And it's really just to get them started, isn't it? It's that little nugget to help them come up, as you say, with that particular idea. Because what's interesting about this competition, it's not the most creative. It's all about the reflections and the lessons that you learned as such. Do you think that students learn a lot about entrepreneurship by taking part in this competition, My Entrepreneurial Journey?
Yes, I definitely think they do. I suppose they learn about all the positive things about being an entrepreneur. They learn about, they get to make all the decisions. They get to be their own boss. They get to choose their working hours, and they get to see all the positive things, but they also get to experience all the challenges when you're talking about, especially currently with COVID-19 and Brexit, and how that can, really have a strong impact, quite a negative impact on a lot of business in their local area. So it's really giving them a realistic insight into what the life of an entrepreneur would be. So I think, because it's not just showing that it's all fantastic and it's all great. The journey can, has ups and downs along the way, and it is a journey. That's, I suppose, what it is, and that's why the competition, I suppose, is called. It's a fantastic name, My Entrepreneurial Journey.
Okay, Sinead, that's great. I suppose, what lessons did you learn from last year that you will be taking with you this year when working with your students?
I suppose lessons that I learned are more like tips that I did last year that I probably would continue this year that worked really well. I think the way you launch the competition to the students is really important. I think Like, you need to go in really enthusiastic, and you're getting them excited, you're showing them what the possible rewards could be, and like doing little activities to make them excited. Like, for example, I'll put up 5 entrepreneur names on the board, and they have to guess who are the top 5 richest entrepreneurs. And then I also get them to do a little Kahoot quiz and guess the logo. And as part of the submissions, I get them to, they love designing their own logo and the little slogans. You're teaching them their marketing skills as well. So I think that's one thing. If you're enthusiastic, they're enthusiastic, and they'll roll with it, and you're just facilitating it then, and they're really engaged in it. And I think another tip I would do is, I suppose a lot of students that I teach would be very high ability students. So I suppose to challenge some of them, I'm constantly, if they have a business idea, for example, like a bakery, they want to put a bakery in Castleblayney, I'll be coming around saying, why is your bakery different? Why am I going to go to you? What's your USP? Like, so you're trying to teach them, challenge them. What really would an entrepreneur need to think of? You can't just open a business, look at your competitors. What are they doing? What are you going to do differently? So I think that's another thing, constantly challenge them and keeping them on their toes, about their business idea would be 2 little tips that I would give for teachers for doing the competition.
Okay, Sinead, that advice is absolutely fantastic. And I suppose just to let teachers and students know out there who are taking part, or maybe who didn't get the opportunity to start this before the school closed, is that all the resources are available on the Student Enterprise website. And we actually have booklets specifically. The Be Enterprising one is specifically helps you for the student enterprise, especially My Entrepreneurial Journey. You have all the booklets there, you have all the templates, explanation of the words, how to reflect, how to interview the entrepreneur, and all the very important things that Sinead spoke about this evening, and all the advice that Sinead gave. Thank you so much. And Sinead, good luck to you and your students in the competition. And of course, to all students who will be participating in My Entrepreneurial Journey. Remember, it's an individual competition, and it's ideal for junior cycle, in particular, the junior cycle business studies. So thank you so much, Sinead, for sharing your really brilliant ideas with us this evening.
Perfect, you're welcome, thank you.
Just Sinead, a question is after coming in before we actually finish up, and it's about remote learning. With what's happening at the moment, and that students and teachers have to deal with this remotely, what advice would you give to both teachers and students?
Yeah, I suppose from my point of view, you can still launch it. The competition's so straightforward. There's 3 parts to it, and I think regardless if you're launching it in the classroom or online remotely, that you're enthusiastic, because your enthusiasm will come across to the students. And the students don't necessarily need technology at home to complete it. Like, they can hand draw a logo, or they can, do their poster hand drawn as well and take a picture of it. So I think it's a really good activity to keep students engaged, keep them, enthusiastic, especially if there's a competition and there could be prize at the end of it. It could be a really, really rewarding experience for them to do when they are actually working from home. Okay, thank you so much, Sinead, and that's great advice. So best of luck to everybody, and hope you were listening and taking note of all the tips that have been here tonight. Thank you.
Well, that was a fantastic Sinead there. Where's Caroline disappeared to now? Well, there she is. Caroline, you're back. God, does anyone have any lemonade by chance? Anyone know when there's any lemonade around anywhere? Been very thirsty, Are you very thirsty?
I'm very thirsty. I've only water here though. So
I know. Well, you see whether we can find maybe a lemonade stand. Oh, that's quenched my thirst, no end. So students, go, go, go. It's not a drill. So that was a fantastic talk with Sinead. So the My Entrepreneurial Journey competition, just to summarize, Caroline, and then we want to move on to the one aimed at senior category students.
Yeah, I suppose just to reiterate that this is for the junior only, so junior and intermediate category, which are known as junior cycle students, first, second and third years. It's an individual entry. And remember, there are 3 parts to it. You don't actually set up the business. It's all about imagining you have set up a business. You tell your story, what you learned, And it can be anything from a local cafe to a large multinational company. And it's all about to tell this story and what you learned. And I think the tips that Sinead gave there were superb. You know, and submit those 3 parts, the 500-word essay, the A3 poster, and the interview with the local entrepreneur. And all of these can be done by remote learning as well, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Without further ado, let's bring in Eilish here, and let's talk about the most creative business idea video competition. Caroline, so you talk us through that. I'm going to disappear for a moment.
Okay.
See ya.
Right then, we're just going to talk about this new element of the competition, which is you present a 2-minute video based on a COVID business idea. It's very, very, very short. And what you're doing is you have to be 16 years of age. You have to upload it on your YouTube and make sure it's a public setting. It's for senior only. It's individual, and it has to be based on the COVID. And that's really important. You're not making a prototype. You're not setting up the actual business. It's all about the idea. So what we'll do now is we'll go straight in, Greg, to asking Eilish the questions, okay? And I suppose just there's extra information in there about the deadlines, etc., when the deadlines have to be theirs. On the 28th of February. So that's your deadline, remember that. And you don't have to produce that prototype. And what judges are looking for is very creative and innovative ideas, but it has to be on COVID-19. Okay, Eilish, how are you?
Good. We're excited.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And just to say, I love the work you do for the student entrepreneurs. It's just fantastic. And all those visuals that you do on social media, they're absolutely, I must actually get a lesson from you sometime on doing them. They're really fantastic. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, for those who don't know, I'm the person behind the social media posts for the Student Enterprise Program on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So if you hear hi or hello from me now, you know who's talking. So I'm the face behind the social.
And it's great to have you here, and great, Eilish, that you're going to actually share your expertise. I'm going to commence by saying, like, this competition is very different. Like, you're talking about a 2-minute video based on a COVID business idea. It's really, really short. You're going to have to try and impress those judges. Where would you suggest that these students start, or even with the teachers start with their students, but probably if they're doing it by themselves now in remote learning, they may have to do it by themselves. Where do they commence the planning of this?
Well, because you've got only 2 minutes, you've really got to make every second count. And the best way to do this is, first of all, do what I call a hygiene factor, which is pay attention to the brief. Have a really strong look at the list of things that you're being asked to do, right? So at the very, very least, make sure that you tick off all the items in the brief and make sure that you're addressing all the items there. When we're talking about the brief itself, there are ways that you can save time. So you've got things where you see a lot of marks weighted in favor of topics like what's innovative about the product, or what's your USP, or what makes the product different. So those things, perhaps, if you were cute enough, you could combine into a particular part of the presentation and therefore kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The other thing you need to do when you're planning, and this is what happens with video generally, this is what all the big Hollywood directors had to do before they shoot a film, they have to storyboard it. So my advice is to map out, basically a storyboard is like a comic book, right? Map out each frame or what you're going to do in each part of the story, or your video, as in this case maybe, so that you're actually making sure you've got a plan, a visual plan to stick to, and then map out your script and rehearse. Another way to save time is to communicate visually. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, that's what videos can help you do. You can communicate something visually really quickly. It means you're not having to say so much, right? So that's another trick in the book. And of course, when you're trying to explain something visually, it registers with people immediately, much faster. They say a visual is 60,000 times faster in terms of human comprehension. So we actually register the idea very quickly when we see something in a visual. So use all of those tricks to get through those 2 minutes. But most of all, plan ahead, write the storyboard, map out your script, and maybe rehearse a bit before, definitely rehearse before you actually do anything, just so that you can get it to fit in within that timeline.
Okay, that sounds fantastic, and the importance of a storyboard, and we have those resources available as well to help the students commence their planning. Now, a student is going to want to stand out from the crowd and really be remembered. So what can they do to bring their idea to life for the judges and ensure that they're remembered?
Well, once again, I'm going to kick off with a hygiene factor, right? So we have a rule in content marketing, which is the discipline that we work in here in Content Plan with me and Greg. We always say, make sure that everything you put out answers the what's in it for me question. That is the question that the person in your audience is asking. Why am I listening to this? What's in it for me? What's happening in this that matters to what I have to do or matters to my life? So from a customer point of view, the customer's going, yeah, your product's great, but how does this benefit me? Like, what are the benefits, whatever about the features? So if you've got the judges marking your presentation and they're your audience, try and answer the what's in it for me question for them as well, because they have a job to do. They have to mark your work. So to make it memorable, make sure that each point of your presentation, you're pointing to the fact that, bingo, this is a mark you can give me. Point back to innovation, point back to intellectual property. Use those keywords so that the judges understand there's something in it for them as they're pointing out, as they're following you through the video. But the other thing, of course, when you want to be memorable in any circumstance, in any presentation, have passion, have conviction, be memorable through your charisma, through your personality. And that doesn't mean going crazy on the screen. It just means talking with conviction, eyes to the camera, straight at the audience. Speak with your mouth, with your eyes, with your face, with your hands, like I'm doing now. And that just means you're communicating so much more than just the words, right? So you'll be remembered a lot more when you're passionate, okay? It's almost hypnotic when somebody speaks so directly to and makes you feel like you're the person in the room that they want to talk to. The other thing, which is a creative factor that we say, is storytelling eats content for breakfast. This is what I say to all my students. Storytelling makes what you're saying way more persuasive. It's also chemical. There is science behind this. When you impart an idea to somebody in the form of a story, it actually registers chemically in their brain. It resonates, and it's much more memorable to the human brain. And therefore, if you want to answer the question, how do you get your judges to remember you? Make sure that you impart your idea in story. So for example, if you've got a product that's innovative, don't just say it's innovative. Say, well, if you were a customer and this is your life, a day in the life, you might have this obstacle, for example. So, our product features would help you overcome this, and this could be success. This is what success looks like with our product, and so on. So in a way, you're outlining almost the hero's journey. And I'm sure some of you are actually studying the hero's journey in school. That's the X factor, the thing that makes people stand out that little bit more. So being creative with your storytelling technique, trying to do something visually. And then, of course, we talked about how being visual is so important. So visual storytelling works even better. And of course, color helps memory as well. So think about the scientific idea of like what makes memory work in your brain, and see if you can pick up on all those little tips and tricks in the way you're telling your story to the judges.
Okay, Eilish, that sounds fantastic. So it's really to get that creative story rather than just making a statement and having the visual so that really they're going to sell it out there. You're actually really selling it to me now here, Eilish.
Yeah, people relate to something, right? So that's why we have things like the Bible and Aesop's fables and the parables and all those things. They gave us ideas, but we understood those ideas because of the story that went with them. So.
Okay. And Eilish, would you encourage students to use props or costumes or perhaps even maybe humor?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about being memorable, about being visual and all, and being passionate and having personality. So of course you think, okay, props, costume, humor, they would work within that context. When I look at the pictures in the past, and having been in Croke Park in the past for the past finals, you've seen stands where people got dressed, in lab coats or in chef's hats and so on, depending on whatever their product was. So yes, it's very creative. It's a really good way to stand out, first of all. And of course, online, when you're watching the video, I'll remember it because you've got your props and so on. My only caveat to this is make sure that everything you're doing, that you're staging, works towards the idea and is contextually, it's relevant to the idea that you're talking about, to the product. Don't have a costume on that has nothing to do with the products, right? That wouldn't make any sense. And then, of course, in the most extreme example, don't do anything in the way you're staging this that detracts from your idea in a really bad way. So like, we were laughing about this early on, but for example, if you had a white wall and there was a big massive stain on your wall, or there was a dog running in the background and you're trying to, like, those things would just distract me from actually listening to what you have to say. So make sure everything's pointing towards what you're doing, that your backdrop points towards what you're doing. And of course, branding is important in the world we have today, in the business world. So think about how the brand can stand out as well.
So really start to take it as serious as they did when they went up to Croke Park, and have the visuals and have everything ready, and that everything actually supports and reiterates what they're trying to say or what they're trying to do there.
Yeah.
On the presentation side of things, like, what are the key points to remember? Obviously, we would want students to practice, and practice makes perfection, I suppose, and having maybe their family or friends critique their presentation.
Of course, you wouldn't be giving it on the first take over to the judges. You'd be making a version of it, a beta test, as they say in the tech world. So if you're doing an element of your video production, if you've got frames, or if you put it together in the first few takes, get someone to help you with a creative eye. So get somebody to watch it, let them take a look at you. Even while you're filming, maybe in the first few takes, get somebody to stand at the camera and maybe give you a small critique, and maybe tweak this here, do that, because you do need that other set of eyes. So as you're practicing and trying to get your presentation right, have somebody there to bounce off. Maybe bounce off one of the takes with your family or the people that you trust for their opinion. Make it easy then for people who are watching your presentation, on the presentation side. Like I said, again, make sure that it's easy for them to understand at which parts of your presentation relate to what parts of the brief that you're talking. So be really clear you're taking them through that brief, the marks that they have to give you. When you're filming, also make a very conscious effort. Again, when we talked about charisma, make eye contact, and of course, if you want to do it, practice yourself in front of the mirror, talk to the mirror, get into that space in your head where you're more relaxed, talking out loud and so on. So let your personality shine through. And of course, when you're speaking, when you're trying to talk about a really complex topic, or you come to a really important point about your product, learn the art of the pause. So there, I just paused for like 1 second. So Barack Obama, for example, in the past, when he did, he's been made fun of actually when he did speeches. He would have really, really important things to say, and then he'd pause once in a while at the podium, just let it all sink in. So see, are there places where you can pause and just let the ideas sink in as well? And of course, practice, practice, practice. Make sure that you try it as many times as possible until you're happy with the take that you've got.
Okay, and I pause. Brilliant, brilliant idea, and it's so effective there. Listen to Eilish there. Let's talk about the technical side of things. Have you got tips for, we'll say, the quality of the video, background noise, and even editing?
Yeah, and to do this, I actually have to confess, we have a much bigger team here at Content Plan, and Bragg is such an expert, but we also have another expert. Her name's Marie Claire, and she does events and she takes videos for a living as well. So I actually spoke to her to make sure that I brought in some of her more technical tips. So I'm going to break it down by certain key ideas. First idea is stability. Make sure that when you're filming, that the equipment is stable, that it just doesn't go jolty and like there's an earthquake. Of course, if you're moving, like it's a GoPro, there's an element of it. If you're doing that sort of thing, that's fine. But if you're standing still, use a tripod or a selfie stick, something that gives it a little bit more of a professional look and feel, so it doesn't look like the Blair Witch Project. You know, maybe that's a reference for you guys who might be too young to even remember that film. But you know, make sure it looks professional enough that it's still. Next thing is sound, right? So film in a quiet place, maybe a time of day when you're likely to not be interrupted. Who knows? Make sure you're free from noise interruptions. All the device itself has to be switched off so that there's no ringing tone coming through. And on that note, there are things you can get to improve that. So from a technical side of things, bearing in mind that not all of us have the budget, but if there is budget or access to the AV equipment, a mic might be good. So there are also mics that are maybe 50 to 20 euros in price, depending on what's available. And of course, you can do a lapel mic. Some have cables that are attached to your phone. Some are wireless. So the wireless ones would be much better. So if you have access to those things are great. Okay, but not absolutely necessary. Lighting is the next key term. So lighting is important to make sure that when you're filming, that it's like me when I was getting ready for this session today, right now, I had to position my lamp, right? So to make sure that the light was shining on my face, because when I didn't do that, my face was like a complete black hole, right? When I was staring back into the screen. So make sure that you have the lighting. Natural light is lovely. It's the best thing going. And so when in doubt, try and go for natural lighting. Indoor lights are good, but make sure you have double the light. You always need more light on video than what you see in the real world. And uplighter, if possible, try and light from below. And of course, you know, test the lighting, look at the first take and see how the light looks, and then go. So obviously you wouldn't be doing everything on the first take and handing that over. Check all those elements first. And when you're speaking, sometimes it's tricky to remember everything, and you don't want to have to be that person trying to memorize everything and looking. You know, when people try to memorize something, you know what happens? They look like this, and they're trying to remember something, and they're looking at the sky. So you don't look normal at all. So how do you help yourself with that? So there are auto cue apps that you can download on the smartphone that naturally, and they're free. Some of them are free. And then, of course, you can have a friend like the olden days, you know, in the TV studio, you could have somebody with a placard writing the bullet points of what you're saying, although you may be well rehearsed enough to know how to patch the bullet points together naturally and ad-lib, but at least have somebody there, you know, to point, have them standing there with the bullet points so you can see that while you're talking, and make sure that your eyes are like in the right direction as well, so they're standing where the camera is. So those things matter. And for editing, there are apps out there as well. Now, I'm going to be really cheeky right now and say this is the senior group, right? So I have a strong suspicion a lot of you are pros at making videos, right? Because you've got your mobile phone. Some of you are on TikTok, dare I say it out loud. Some of you are on Instagram, and you just love making content. If my daughter is any indicator, right? So I'm sure you guys know how to do this, but if you don't, there are apps that you can download like InShot. I've put out stuff on social media before where I put out certain apps that are good for making visual content, like canva.com. So you might have raw video, different frames, different elements that you've picked up, and you can patch them together, just uploading them into these apps and then splicing them together. If you've got any Apple devices, like an iMac or a MacBook in the house, iMovie would be embedded in that already. So it's a free thing that's already there that you can use. So iMovie is another thing that you can use for editing.
Okay, thank you for that, Eilish. And again, I suppose that some might just use their phone, and that's fine too. And some may not have mics, and that's okay as well. What would be the 5 tips that you would give students tonight based on all of this information?
Sorry, Caroline, for breaking it. There's some awful, Brad. There's a dreadful racket coming from the common room there. Sorry about this.
Oh my goodness,
it's dreadful. I think I've got rid of them now, you know.
Thank you so much, Greg, for doing
your 5 tips and everything. So I'll leave you be. That's a cue for you, teachers. So get texting and WhatsApping. So 5 tips.
Okay, so I got some slides ready. So I'm gonna so bear with me. I'm gonna try and pull up my slides at the moment. So let me do that. Okay. Sorry, I'm still trying to find my slides. And we're going to try and get those up on screen. I got them. I got them. Woohoo! All is not lost. Okay, so let me get that out there. Okay. And just making sure that you can see my presentation tips. I'm going to pull that up now onto the big screen. Okay. Okay. So 5 presentations, so that we have some quick ones to remember. We've mentioned these before, and we're going to talk about them in very brief snippets. So the first thing to remember is stick to the brief, right? So if anybody remembers Mad Men, they had to pitch their ideas all the time. So don't forget, watch very carefully what's written down on your on the instructions for your competition, and make sure you tick off every one of those things in order to get those marks. The other thing is show, don't just tell. So for me, this phrase sums up the visual storytelling side of it. Remember we said storytelling eats content for breakfast? When you do it visually, that's even faster, right? So anybody who tells me that you can't tell a story without using words, well, here, I'm giving you Charlie Chaplin. He managed to pull that off. So there's a lot you can communicate visually as well. And because you're on video, don't forget, the reason we're using some famous movies in this slide deck is that a lot of movies, you know, they tell a really good story visually, and video is there to help you communicate. The other thing is answer the what's in it for me question. So don't forget your audience. Your audience is sitting there watching the video on the other side of the screen. What are you going to impart to them that explains the benefits of your product? What's in it for the customer, right? So that's your key goal. Later on in life, might be pitching your idea to seed investors, or you might be up there in the business world one day. Whenever you're pitching to somebody, always remember to frame everything you say in terms that matter to them, that they can understand as well. So always think about what it is your audience needs you to say, or how you need to say it for them. And I hope everybody can remember this movie. See, I'm taking stuff from the 90s now, so it might be too old for you, but there's ways to build your case. When you're making a presentation, whether it's on video or in front of somebody in the boardroom or in the courtroom, as a case may be, right? You have to make your case really clear and believable. So you don't have a prototype, you haven't gone to market yet, but you really need to clarify how this is actually going to work and make it very credible. So the things I would say is, first of all, have visual proof in any way you can of something that's necessary. So in this case, you may not have a prototype, but maybe show how there's something lacking currently. There's a product out there that, doesn't have the features that you need it to have, and therefore you're going to step in. And the next thing is called social proof. It's to do with people. It's to do with maybe showing, if you had a product in the real world, for example, you'd have a testimonial or a review. But in this case, because you don't have a prototype, maybe have a vox pop or a survey to show what society wants. So you have to do some kind of research, if I'm not wrong. So social proof is perhaps one way to show that the people out there really want this, that really have a need for this. And the best way is to maybe get them to say it for you. And empirical proof, you can show something, you can have a review, but if you don't show the data, then maybe there's something lacking. So if you can anchor any case that you're building with actual data, with empirical proof, or even something that measures the need for that product, that's still better than nothing, right? Even the survey results that say like 6 out of 10 people, wish they had this additional feature and so on their mask, or if it's COVID related. So there's lots of things you can do within those boundaries. And of course, the final thing which you said before, be authentic, show your personality, and having the best shows out there are people who are themselves. And the whole point of doing this is to show something that's new, that's unique, and that only you can offer, because that's the whole point in being first to market, of being an entrepreneur. You're filling the gap with something that's truly, truly unique, right? So that's a really nice way to round it up, and that's where we are. So those are my tips.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So really what you're saying to the students, keep to the brief, keep your presentation and kind of like a storytelling with the visual, do everything from your customers and judges' point of view, make sure that you have proof, and finally be yourself. Thank you so much, Eilish, for these fantastic tips.
Thank you very much.
It's me again. Let's announce some competition winners, shall we? Should we start
Okay.
with the student? We are very, very big today in New Ross. It's all kicking off in New Ross because our student winner is Grace Walsh from St. Mary's Secondary School in New Ross, County Wexford. Well done, Grace.
Congratulations.
Let's move on to our teacher and find out who the winner of our teacher is. Said we're getting big in New Ross. And the winner of our teachers competition is PJ Walsh. Would you like to take a guess where PJ might be, Caroline?
I'd say maybe from New Ross as well.
Oh, that's your psychic. Unbelievable. Mind reader. He's from the Good Counsel College in New Ross, County Wexford. Who knew that we'd be so popular in New Ross? Unbelievable.
Congratulations, PJ.
We literally have we're going to get 2 quick questions and then we're going to wrap up. So let's have a quick look at the questions that come in. I'm going to bring Eilish back in. We'll get Lily's. So it's Lily Yasmin's question here. So Lily they did a promotional video for the launch of their product before Christmas, but sales have slowed. So how do we revitalize our sales?
Oh, well, Christmas, there's a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement around Christmas, isn't there? So it's easy to ride that wave and it's very buoyant. And then as you get into January, one naturally sees a slump and people are kind of holding back a bit and so on. So I think what's important is if you're promoting something from the marketing point of view, tie it with what's relevant right now in January. So there might be, for example, if you're out on social media, you might use hashtags that matter. So, there's January blues, or there's well-being is a big topic. There's issues around mental health, depending on what your product is. Tie it into the zeitgeist of what people are thinking right now. Another thing we've used very recently in other places is we talked about shopping local, which is still a very important idea. With Brexit happening right now and COVID, we can't go out and shop wherever we want. We have to try and support our local economy. So maybe tie into that trigger as you're promoting it, trying to appeal to people's better natures and say, it's good to support, it's safer to shop local, and those are elements that can bring. And the other thing is, okay, talk about your benefits of your product. What are there benefits you're missing out or that you didn't mention the last time that might be relevant right now? And people do have promotions as well. So try and kick off things again with a new promotion, maybe a new 2 for something offer, or that's what tends to happen in January anyway. So see if you can do any of those things.
Brilliant. So what Eilish is saying, which is fantastic, it's a bit like me putting on my deodorant in the morning. Don't be afraid to freshen it up, Lily.
Freshen it up.
New video. There's a word I've always loved with video. I use a lot. It's called edutainment. So educate and entertain with passion and enthusiasm. So are you educating people about your product and service, and are you entertaining them? Because quite frankly, I don't want to watch your boring video. So don't be afraid to freshen it up. And a great hashtag to look, because that's a great point, Eilish, you made about the shopping local. But the great hashtag to look at online is hashtag look for local. So if you use the hashtag look for local, it's a local enterprise office initiative, you'll see lots and lots of videos and updates from other local businesses marketing their businesses locally. So you might want to check that out, Lily. Great question.
And actually, contact the media as well. Don't be afraid. You're young students. I've been following you on Twitter and you're just fantastic. I noticed there wasn't as much since Christmas. So I think you just need to get your act there and start putting it out there and to get as much, I suppose, as well known as you can be. So the best of luck.
Can I add another point?
No.
Yeah.
No. I'll go on.
Oh, I'm sure you can find influencers. I'm not talking about getting Kim Kardashian to flog your product, but local influencers, people who are important around where you are that might matter to what. Say you're doing a sports product, could you find a nice GAA star in your county and appeal to their better day and get them to help you endorse something? So people are very generous towards students anyway, and they're there to help you. So don't hesitate.
There you go. So Eilish says, get Kim Kardashian, I think.
Yeah.
Just to wrap things up. So very quickly, just wrapping up the session this evening, what would our top tips for promoting our business using video be?
Okay, so like apart from the five tips, I would say one of the core tips for marketing in general, right, in promoting is it's not about you. It's about the people you're trying to persuade. So understand your audience as much as you can. And once you understand what appeals to them, that really matters to them, what they want to see, like Greg has said, edutainment. If you're being helpful, if you're being useful, sometimes that's more important than actually pushing the brand idea all the time and my product. So be out there, see how you can intercept what people's needs are there questions being asked. The beauty about being on places like Twitter, you can just do a keyword search and find out people are asking a question about what you're selling. So for example, I know there's a very clever bunch of people out there selling dog chew toys. If I'm not wrong, Caroline, there's one out there on Twitter. So say if they find people in their area that are talking about, dogs, how to train my dog and so on, so they can intercept those conversations and put them out. So what I'm trying to say is it's not always about pushing your product. It's also about listening to what your customer is saying and you finding out what they care about and see if you can help them, intercept them with good content that's related to your product and gain their trust over time. So the long game to be playing, I would say, is the content side where you're helping your customer.
Yeah, brilliant. And so like I don't think has anyone ever gone on for the X Factor? Have you gone for the X Factor there, Caroline?
No, I haven't.
No,
I missed this.
No.
On my to-do list.
The simple reality is no one buys boring. You're not going to audition for the X Factor and not give it socks. You're not. So at the end of the day, if you're going to create a video or talk about your product, Eilish mentioned before, passion, but ultimately give it socks. You have one chance to make a first impression. So use it and don't be afraid of sounding silly or sounding too enthusiastic. Speaking in monotone won't work. Yeah. So guys, that's a wrap for this evening. So what I want to say is thanks so much for tonight. Just for anyone that's listening, you can watch the rerun of tonight's session literally live from your virtual classroom first thing tomorrow morning by visiting our website or a YouTube channel. So literally hop on and check it out. Don't forget to look at Eilish's beautiful graphics on social media. So do follow us on social media and you'll find out about new updates when it comes to the competition, the new student and teacher competitions there as well. A huge thanks to tonight's guests. So that's Caroline, obviously, there steering the ship brilliantly as ever. And we have Eilish down below. And let's not forget amazing Sinead in Monaghan there. So thank you so much for the guests. Our next broadcast, which is appearing down below there. It's on the 25th of January, and it's going to be all about finance. Doesn't that sound exciting? Finance.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
But it's probably an area they find difficult, so we'll be trying to make it as easy as possible and help students. It's not that difficult. We're actually making the accounts very simple and very easy.
Yeah, well, I mean, managing cash flow, income, budgeting, it can be a bit scary, certainly for someone like me. So it's going to be a really, really cool session. It's going to be a fun session, according to Caroline as well, and simple. Isn't that right, Caroline?
Yes, that's right.
So,
Greg.
25th of January, 7 p.m. Put that in your diary. I believe that's Australia Day as well. There's another caveat for yourself. So it's going to be a fun one. So in the meantime, I want you guys to keep safe, stay happy, and keep innovating. So from me, Caroline, and Eilish, it's a cheery goodbye. We will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.